And with this story, this is going to be kind of like a final conclusion. And I'm getting this story from people.com. So thank you for the article. And a lot of guys have been following this story. So if you guys would make sure and include us in that when you check out our content, make sure and share this video as well. But I got to say, with us just coming off of Mother's Day, it makes you wonder, because I know so many good mothers out there. A lot of you guys feel like how I feel. There are a lot of amazing mothers out there that will give their last breath to their kids and do anything that they can to raise them and so they can grow up and become something great. Then you have the people that just are the exact opposite of that, right? You know, just people that are not good people. But before I get into too much of giving my opinion, I don't want to go too crazy because some people ain't never seen my content before. So let me give you a disclaimer first. Some viewers may find the following content offensive and controversial. The information in this video comes from multiple sources, including court records, official police charges, news web articles, and interviews. This video commentary also contains my personal opinions about the facts of this story. The point is to use this story as a cautionary tale in hopes of preventing tragedies like these to children going forward. Viewer discretion is advised. That is your official disclaimer. And I do have to give that disclaimer every time just to make sure that we are good to go. Give me a second here. Let me say welcome, Ash and Emmy. I did get your cash app. So thank you guys so much. They're always showing love and say, ready for tonight. We are ready to get it in. There is so much to talk about. So much to talk about. So thank you so much for that. So let me go ahead and put this picture up on the screen. So the crackhead, I'm sorry, the stupid bitch, I'm sorry. I mean, the Freddy Krueger mother-looking individual that you guys see right here on my screen, that woman, her name is Lori Vallow, V-A-L-L-O-W. Hopefully I said that correctly. Daybell, D-A-Y-B-E-L. That person, individual, has been found guilty. Why? Of murdering her 2 children and conspiring to murder her 5th husband's first wife. Let's back that up just for a second. Her 5th husband's first wife. That is a conundrum in itself. 5th husband. First of all, they had to have known something was wrong with her. Maybe people kept divorcing her because they figured out that she was crazy and it ended up getting to this point. I don't understand how somebody this dumb can have that many husbands. And it almost have to make you think, like, were those men that dumb too? Maybe they were good people. Maybe they didn't know no better. Maybe she just snapped one day, but to be sitting there. Yeah, 5th husband. Yeah, y'all heard that right. 5. Cinco. Like Cinco de Mayo. 5 husbands. And this was her in the back of the police car smiling. Like that's like her send-off photo right there. If y'all ever want to see the face of evil, you are literally looking at it on my screen right there. She was charged with murdering and conspiring to murder her 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow and her daughter, 16-year-old Tylee Ryan, and conspiring to murder Tammy Daybell, who was her 5th husband's first wife. You just can't make a narrative like that up. I don't know, man. Look, let's keep going because this is going to get crazy. I hope y'all are ready. Tammy, 49 years old, was married to Lori's 5th husband, Chad Daybell, for nearly 30 years before her death. All of the murders took place in 2019. In addition to the murder and conspiracy charges, Lori was also charged and found guilty of grand theft. Big picture popped up. Let me try to close this. There we go. While the verdict was read, Lori displayed no visible emotion. So I think you guys can see that in some of these pictures. I'll try to post them. This is pretty much the expression that she had. Some of you guys have actually been following this for a while. And thank you guys so much for joining the channel membership. I see you in there. If y'all have followed this and y'all have seen the live streams, those live stream court things, they're usually like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. Like they can be long. And I'm just like, I'd rather kind of catch it at the conclusion. But most of the time she sits there with this dumbfounded looking face right there. Like, I don't know why the Lord would give her a face like that so she can look just as Slower than a bottle of molasses, but nonetheless, that's just what it is. She looked at the clerk reading the verdict and looked down at times. Her hands were clasped in the front of her. She wore a black jacket, a black top, and black pants. After the verdict was delivered, she calmly walked out of the courtroom without saying anything to her attorneys. Like, she just ain't nothing going on at all. The trial lasted almost 7 weeks and answered numerous questions in relation to the untimely deaths of JJ, Tylee, and Tammy, who was her 5th husband's first wife. Try to remember that. That's incredible. During opening statements, Fremont County Prosecuting Attorney Lindsay Blake revealed that Tammy's cause of death was asphyxiation. Choked. Tammy died at the hands of another, Blake said. On October 19th of 2019, weeks after JJ and Tylee disappeared, Chad Daybell reported Tammy's death, saying she had gone to bed with a cough and didn't wake up. The manner of death was initially ruled as natural causes, which is wild because you would think that they would get this correct. Initially, they thought it was natural causes and no autopsy was done. However, her death was later deemed suspicious and her body was exhumed for an autopsy to be conducted. Let me ask you guys this. I get that if you think it's something you don't want to go above and beyond the call of duty, I get that. But I would just think that shouldn't you want like an official cause of death? Like you should want that to be accurate as hell, right? Like, would any of y'all want y'all loved ones, your mom, your cousin, your auntie, to pass away and you're just like, yeah, we think she died of natural causes, but we don't really know. So what we're going to do is we're going to dig them up out the ground and now we're going to make sure, rather than just making sure, and then you don't have to go through all that bullshit of exhuming their body. Like, that just seems like a disgusting process to have to go through. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm dumb. But they exhumed her body for an autopsy. On November the 5th of that same year, Lori Ann Chad, an author who wrote about doomsday scenarios, married in Hawaii. Later in the trial, and nearly 3 years after siblings JJ and Tylee were found buried on Chad's Idaho property. Found buried. JJ's cause of death was also revealed to be asphyxiation. Dr. Garth Warren, a forensic pathologist, said JJ was asphyxiated. Now, I'm not going to be able to keep saying that word. I'm sorry. Like, I went to college, but not real great with these $5 words. JJ was asphyxiated with a plastic bag and duct tape over his mouth, according to East Idaho News. Tylee's manner of death was homicide, but her cause of death remained undetermined, according to the outlets. Her autopsy took several days because her remains were not found intact. Crazy. This autopsy was different, Warren said. The vast majority of the time when I perform an autopsy, I get the entire body and there's a process to go through. Tylee's was a different case. Her remains were received in 3 separate sealed bags. Want y'all to look at that face and remember what I just said. Think about the angels that you guys see on my screen right here. These kids, these young teenagers, could not speak for themselves. They couldn't defend themselves against their mother. Like how could they possibly? The caretaker, the person that they live with, turned out to be the most horrid person. Like, how do we even get to this point? Like, maybe your life is bad and maybe you feel like there's nothing else for you to live for. But I don't understand why people can't just leave the kids alone. I will never understand that. That's why we'll always be advocates for children first. But let's keep going. During the trial, numerous witnesses took the stand, including Lori's surviving son, Kobe Ryan, and her sister, Summer Cox Shiflett. Both Kobe and Summer cried as they spoke about their siblings. Kobe described his mother, saying that for much of his life, she protected her children and supported him. He also said that throughout his childhood, he loved Lori and didn't think that she could hurt someone until she met Chad. My mom has spent her whole life protecting us as kids, Kobe said on the stand. After she met Chad Daybell, she changed. Chad, who is 54 years old, is charged in connection with the deaths of Tylee, JJ, and Tammy, but he'll be tried in a separate trial. And I don't know if we'll really follow up because this is the main person that we've been talking about most of this time. But maybe we will. Maybe we'll talk about Chad because he has something to do with this also. And so far, he's pled not guilty. Lori will be sentenced at a later time, but I can almost guarantee you guys she's probably going to end up getting a life sentence with no parole. After the verdict, prosecutors Rob Wood and Lindsay Blake released a statement saying that they are pleased with the jury's verdict and want to thank them as well as the alternates for their service over the last 6 weeks during the trial. Given the pending case against the co-defendant Chad Daybell, we are unable to conduct any additional interviews or discuss further details. So let's skip that. We understand that. The statement added, "We also want to express sincere appreciation to the members of law enforcement and the community who tirelessly work together to hold Lori Vallow Daybell accountable." Now, if you guys ever suspect child abuse, call the National Child Abuse Hotline at 800-4-A-CHILD or 800-422-4453 or childhelp.org. Let me give you guys the fair usage. I'm going to look at a couple of these news videos, but some of them are a little long, so we're going to skip through it just a little bit. Here we go. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. Also, and if you guys can help spread the news of this video, please hit that thumbs up. We want to have one thumb up for everybody watching. Please just hit that thumbs up. Only takes a second to share this video, okay? Here we go.
Lori Vallow Daybell is now being held in the Madison County Jail in eastern Idaho tonight, awaiting sentencing. A jury in Ada County found her guilty on all counts Friday afternoon. Those counts are murder and conspiracy to commit murder, as well as grand theft and the deaths of her two kids, JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan, and her husband's late wife, Tammy Daybell. The judge said Vallow will be sentenced within 3 months from now. She could face up to life in prison. News Channel 7's Shira Matsuzawa talked to JJ's grandparents, Tylee's aunt, and Lori Vallow's uncle about the outcome of the trial.
For the families of JJ, Tylee, and Tammy, Friday's guilty verdict was more than 3 years of waiting, prayers, and tears.
Thank y'all, thank y'all, thank y'all.
JJ's grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock, talked with media moments after the verdict came down.
We are elated with this.
I want to personally hug every one of those jurors.
While the Woodcocks were in court when that verdict was read, many relatives were also watching from across the country. Family members like Tylee's aunt, Annie Cushing.
I was just absolutely over the moon.
Annie was in court the first couple of weeks of the trial and sat just feet away from Lori.
I was surprised by how I felt when I saw her. Like, I was expecting more rage and just like, how dare you, but she looked like an animal caught in a trap. I walked away with the realization she also took herself down. She lived a charmed, privileged life, and she threw it all away.
Lori's uncle, Rex Connor, had a similar experience when he attended the trial on 2 separate occasions.
You make eye contact with Lolo, and you have that faint smile, well, we knew the person that preceded you. When you make eye contact, I don't feel like we know this person. I don't speak with Lori, but my sister Janice, her mother, does every week. And, when I'm talking with Janice, she just relays Lori is still in her delusion.
Do you have a message for Lori?
I've thought through, like, if there's anything I would want to say to her, it would fall on deaf ears. She's a psychopath. She has no concern whatsoever about the pain and suffering she's caused other people.
And it's that pain that makes the guilty verdict they've been waiting for still wrapped in sadness, because it doesn't bring the kids back.
It's the most bittersweet you can imagine. Just the sadness, but the relief from all this is I guess, a liberating feeling. I do believe since it's Mother's Day weekend, this is what you call poetic justice.
We are so grateful that for everyone that has come in contact with the story. And here's why. You can think of all of the news stories, all of the situations in the world that we see reported, and aren't most of them divisive? There are millions of people now that are aware of it, that are following it, that care about it, and we're all on the same side.
The Idaho mom at the center of a so-called doomsday plot that led to murder is scheduled to be sentenced later this year. That mother, you've heard the name before, Lori Vallow Daybell, was convicted on Friday of killing her two youngest children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow, and conspiring to kill the first wife of her husband, Chad Daybell. Chris Van Cleve now has reaction to the verdict.
Answer: guilty.
An Idaho jury of 7 men and 5 women found Lori Vallow Daybell guilty on all charges, including the first-degree murders of her 2 youngest children.
Answer: guilty.
While Vallow Daybell offered no visible reaction as the verdicts were read,
We are elated with this.
family members, including 7-year-old JJ's grandparents, reacted with emotion.
JJ, I love you.
I'm so relieved that justice was served.
Tylee's aunt, Annie Cushing.
But then there are those, just those quiet moments of realizing, it doesn't bring the victims back.
During the 5-week trial, the prosecution argued Vallow Daybell's motives were money, power, and sex.
Tylee, JJ, and Tammy can't tell us what happened, but their bodies do.
Prosecutors called nearly 60 witnesses. The defense rested without calling a single one, but painted her as a victim of her husband, Chad, a doomsday cult leader.
She's following Chad. She thinks Chad is following Jesus.
And here's my thing about that, and that's part of where we have to start getting over this accountability, if y'all don't mind me saying. Like, I think that this woman should get life in prison for the role that she played. Don't make it seem like, oh, well, she was following a man. Here's my whole thing. Here's my whole thing. This is what I get upset about in our world, and maybe some of you guys can kind of understand where I'm coming from. Shout out to the women. And I think we get a lot of women to listen. Y'all tell me if I'm wrong about this. Anybody who's listening right now, please hit that thumbs up. Share this video. Tell me if I'm wrong about what I'm saying. Our society tells us that they want us to treat women the same, treat women equal, give them equal opportunities, give them equal rights, correct? And I agree with all of that. But why is it that it seems like when it comes to court, when it comes to being held accountable, just like a man would, now all of a sudden, well, let's check on her mental status. Now, maybe she was being led. Maybe the man forced her to do it. Maybe he coerced her. Maybe she just didn't know any better, right? You should look at this on the merits of what she did, the fact that she is a grown, lawful adult in the United States of America, and if she does something that caused the death of her kids or anybody else, then she should be held accountable on that alone. I don't care what her influences are, right? I don't care if Jesus or the devil influenced her. You could always blame it on an influence. You could blame it on the sunshine. You could blame it on the moonlight. You could blame it on the good times. Hell, you could even blame it on the boogie. Sorry. Y'all know I'm an old school DJ. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be quoting Michael Jackson lyrics. I'm sorry. But I just think that's really weird. The fact that we're going to say, give them all these equal things. We're going to treat them all the same until it comes to certain things. Like, that doesn't make any sense. We're going to make them do equal work until it comes to something that's too heavy or too dangerous, or, you know what I'm saying? We're going to give them equal rights until they get up in front of a judge, and now all of a sudden, you know what? We need to have more compassion because she's a female. And I think that I have a lot of good women out there. Let me say that again. I think I have a lot of good women out there, especially in my chat, that believe, you know what? That's bullshit. And we want to be treated equal, and we stand on our own 2 feet. Right, ladies? Tell me if I'm right or wrong about that. Tell me I got some ladies out there in the chat that'll listen to the sound of my voice that believe that I stand on my own 2 feet and I don't need anybody making excuses for my choices. That's real empowerment. Thank you. That's real empowerment.
But he's not.
A source close to the trial says Vallow Daybell was unhappy her lawyers tried to place blame for the murders on her husband, who will be tried separately.
And while Lori can only face up to life in prison, Chad Daybell, if convicted, he could get the death penalty.
Her husband Chad's lawyers were there, were listening to her defense attorneys blaming him for all of the criminal misconduct. That certainly will be part of his trial.
Chad Daybell has pleaded not guilty. His wife will face sentencing in the coming months. For CBS Mornings, I'm Chris Van.
This part is quite a bit long. This is about 15 minutes long. I don't know that y'all want to sit through this much of it. This is just basically the sentencing. I thought this was important because you could hear more of the judge, but I would just say go to CBS's YouTube channel, watch it there. It's the one that's like 14 minutes, I believe. So I won't make you guys watch the whole portion of that. But let me show you a little bit of a shorter version here in the news.
Give us back our children. We're not ending this. This is not the end of this. And I'm going to say right now what I'm going to say in 3 months. Why, Lori? Why, Lori? Why?
An emotional moment for the grandfather of JJ, who was killed, and Lori Vallow has been convicted of her murder. The so-called doomsday mom convicted on those 2 murders, JJ and Tylee, and she will soon face sentencing in the case. She could spend the rest of her life behind bars. That's what's on the table. A jury of 7 men, 5 women found her guilty on all of those charges Friday: first-degree murder, also conspiracy and grand theft in the deaths of Tylee, who was 16 years old, and JJ, who was 7 in 2019. Jurors also found that Lori conspired to murder Tammy Daybell, her husband Chad Daybell's first wife. I want to thank trial attorney and legal analyst Brian Claypool. He's been following this since the very beginning. It's not over. This was a major step in the guilty verdict from this jury, but guilty on all charges. First of all, Brian, just your thoughts as you watched.
You know what? I was reading the chat, and Stacy actually said exactly what I was thinking. She said she didn't have compassion for the kid, so why have compassion for her? That's actually what I'm going to touch on right after this video ends. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Because for those 2 other living children, I want y'all to think about that. Whenever the judge or the jurors make a conviction on her and make a conviction on her husband, think about those kids and how do you explain that to them why you would give this broad a softer sentence because she was being led when she's just as guilty in the participation of the deaths of 3 people. Give her a softer sentence, give her more leeway than this man who led it. Why? Like, I think that weakens the case of presenting women as strong because I believe that they are equal, right? And I think in order for society to be strong, you have to get rid of the weak people. People who would hurt kids, innocent, defenseless kids, should not be in our society. Everybody agree to that? That's what I'm talking about. Anybody who could participate in the murder and abuse of children who we're supposed to be protecting as the next generation got to get the hell out of here.
This trial.
Yeah. Hey, Marnie, belated Happy Mother's Day, by the way. I hope you had a great weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, you know, you had me on right after opening statement in the Lori Vallow case, and I felt like I was on an island because I told you that the only real plausible defense she had in that case was what's called diminished capacity, which was she would arguably have to admit that, look, yes, I was involved in these murders, but because of my mental health issue, because of my involvement in this cult, that I didn't have the requisite intent to commit these murders. And had she argued that, she might have gotten away with a second-degree murder, and she might have walked out of prison. She didn't have that defense. And by the way, Marnie, her defense was pathetic in this case. She didn't call an expert pathologist to try to attack the cause of death. She didn't, for example, call a forensic expert to test the duct tape to possibly attack the mechanism in which her hair was found on that duct tape. That would have been a critical witness for her to bring in. And then last, she didn't even bring in a forensic psychologist to possibly review the records. Remember, she was in a mental hospital 8 months. She could have called a psychologist on the stand to say, look, I've reviewed all these records. I've seen her myself, and she is suffering from PTSD. She's really distressed about having lost her kids. There was none of that at trial. She came off like a cold, callous murderer.
Right. And why was that? I mean, is that on her that she directed her defense not to do those things? Or is it the blame lays with her defense that they screwed this up and did not present a case, had no strategy at all? I mean, will we know?
Yeah, Marnie, great question. This absolutely falls on the hands of the trial lawyers and the defense team. I mean, I represented years ago Dalia DiPolito. I don't know if you remember that case in Florida. She was caught on, a videotape saying she's 5,000% sure she wanted to kill her husband. And I was able to get a hung jury in the retrial in that case. Why? Because I directed the defense of that case. I decided to go after the police department for what's called objective entrapment. I called police officers on the stand to cross-examine them. I mean, defense lawyers need to navigate a case, especially in this instance where this woman is obviously deranged, Marnie. Why would you ever rely on anything she's saying in terms of her defense? I mean, shame on her defense lawyers.
Right. But the prosecution did lay out a pretty good case. So the defense certainly could have done more, but the prosecution's evidence, even though circumstantial, was really compelling as we watch this whole trial, right? So they have to be given some credit for a conviction.
Oh, yeah, Marnie, I'm not taking anything away from the prosecution. They put on a great case. And they, for example, they put on a great case of motive as well, right? The social.
To be honest with y'all, this man sounds like he's trying to promote himself, patting himself on the back. That's what it sounds like to me. This sounds like a selfless plug to me. I'm just saying.
Security benefits, the fraud there, the two of them getting married, they wanting to be empty nesters. Remember all that testimony? No, I think the prosecution did a fantastic job. And that's why it proves my point that the defense lawyers had to put on something to show she's got a heart and soul, put on something that maybe challenges that there was bad testing on that hair on the duct tape, which you and I talked about, which was devastating to her defense. She didn't even put up a fight, and she got what she deserved then.
All right. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation.
Straight up, and thank y'all for that video. But let me say this. Let me say this, and here's how I surmise all of this. Let me see if I can get back to her picture. That's actually both of them, but I'm gonna just skip to just her picture. Let me say this. If you can be so dumb that you can be led to commit murder, then I think for that alone, the fact that you are a parent, an adult in a household, that you can be that damn dumb, whether he's a pastor, I don't care. I don't care if he was the Holy Ghost himself living in your house. If you can be that dumb to be led to murder people, then I think you deserve life in prison just for being that stupid. So whenever the sentencing is, I think it's going to be here in the next few months. I think it's in less than 90 days, I think is what they're looking at. I forgot. I think it's like July or something like that. Life in prison is all I want to hear, with no possibility of return. I don't see why you would ever want somebody back like that in society. Here's the other part of it. For the part that man played for manipulating the situation, or whatever he did, or whatever he knew that was wrong that caused the death of at least these 3 people, his ass needs to go to jail for life with no possibility of return too. Like, who's going to miss them? I don't think anybody's going to miss them, right? There's less people to be, for them to be getting married, for her to be married 5 times. Just, you got to get bad apples. You got to get bad seeds out of your crops. That's all I'm saying. But if you guys have a comment about this, if you feel like I said something that was inaccurate, or if you need to make a correction, or if it's something I missed, we got the comment section. Please let me know. I've always got my email right here, the afcmatters@gmail.com. Please hit that thumbs up, but share with me if there's something that I have said that's factually inaccurate. I know sometimes I say something that don't really sit well with people's sensibilities. That's completely different. That's my opinion, but you already know that's what you're coming here for. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you. The original story I did was actually back in March of 2020 on this story of the boy that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. That is Ganon Stauch. And what happened to him is just incredibly sad. And I think behind his mother's incredible selfishness, what led to this, I have no pity for her at all. But before I get too much into being disparaging, because I don't want to shock anybody with my content, let me give you a disclaimer before we dive into this really, really huge update to the story. Sometimes it takes a while. So this is 3 years in the making. Some viewers may find the following content offensive and controversial. The information in this video comes from multiple sources, including court records, official police charges, news web articles, and interviews. This video commentary also contains my personal opinions about the facts of this story. The point is to use this story as a cautionary tale in hopes of preventing tragedies like these to children going forward. Viewer discretion is advised. That is your official disclaimer. And I'm getting this story from WKRG.com, so thank you for the article. Pensacola, Florida. Again, this is going to be an update to this fool, this dummy that you guys see on my screen. That lady right there, Letecia Stauch. A nationally televised murder trial is underway in Colorado. The woman is accused of killing her stepson, not her biological son. Her stepson, before putting his dead body in a suitcase. I want y'all to think about how heartless that is. That is to cause this baby boy's death. This boy didn't do nothing to deserve what he got. To cause his death, place his dead body in a suitcase, and guess what she did with it? She took his body like it was the suitcase, like it was filled with clothes that she didn't want, and threw it off of the side of a Pensacola bridge. That's what she did. Ganon Stauch was 11 years old, and he was reported missing from Colorado Springs January 27th of 2020, roughly around when we did this story, by his stepmother, Letecia Stauch, or Stench, whatever you want to call her, 38 years old. Ganon's father, by the name of Albert, was a member of the National Guard, and he was on deployment at the time. So essentially, the mom became like a babysitter. Here's what I want you guys to remember, and I just use this as the cautionary tale. It doesn't mean that if you're dating someone or if you're married to someone that they're going to be violent towards your kid if they ever have to babysit them. I'm not saying that, but here's what I'm saying, and I've been saying this for a long time. You know how I always talk about hashtag mom's boyfriend and how these men don't share a DNA tie to these kids, and there's a good likelihood that they're probably going to abuse the children, especially if you leave them with unfettered access to these kids because they don't care about these kids, and these kids look like the person that made these kids that just got done sleeping with your mate. So you can understand how that might put a fire in someone's soul to not like the children that this woman produced outside of the person that they're in a relationship with. Hopefully you guys followed that. The same concept would apply when you marry into a relationship with someone who already has a kid, especially if that kid ends up living under that roof. It's no way for you to really know, and sometimes, man, you just gotta just really do your due diligence and just pray that you pick the right person. I just think that this woman developed a hate in her heart for whatever reason and caused the death of this boy. This boy didn't do a damn thing to this woman at all. The dad was on deployment. All she had to do was hold it down. That's it. hold down the household like a wife is supposed to. His body wouldn't be found until nearly 2 months later in Florida. Ganon's body was found under a bridge near Pensacola. His body was wrapped in bedding and inside a suitcase. Ganon had been stabbed 18 times. But it gets worse, because you guys know that's called a crime of passion. When you have that much rage in you that you can stab a human being that many times, let alone 18 times. That's not an accident. That is intentional, and you meant for that person to die. That's why I believe that this should be an easy first-degree murder charge, life in prison, no possibility of parole. I don't know if they got the death penalty or not in Pensacola, Florida. Maybe we can get that. But not only that, shot in the jaw and had a skull fracture. Shot in the jaw. Y'all catch that? Law enforcement officers say that they believe that Leticia had killed Ganon in his bedroom while the two of them were at home alone on January the 27th. Investigators searched Ganon's bedroom, which is where they found blood splatter on the wall and blood stains on the mattress and carpet. Blood from Ganon was also found on the garage floor and the bumper of Leticia's car, because she probably drug him out there. That is so sad to even think about. Photos of Ganon showed he was still alive that morning. In the photos, a Nintendo Switch gaming system was seen. Detectives say that that gaming system had not been found to this day. Investigators were able to get surveillance video from neighbors which showed Leticia and a person who appeared to be Ganon leaving the home that morning. When the vehicle they were seen in returned, Leticia was the only person seen. She was convicted and sentenced to 2 life sentences. I don't even see what the point is of trying to make her serve that out. She's going to die in prison. Fine. But why waste taxpayer dollars? Like, I think people like that deserve the ultimate penalty under law. If you was ever going to give somebody the death penalty, I think it should be like this, right? After Leticia's arrest for murder, she pled not guilty by reason of insanity. So she was looking for an excuse, and I'm glad they didn't give it to her. On April the 3rd, 12 jurors were seated with 6 alternatives. Opening statements began with the prosecution describing the murder. In the defense's opening statement, the attorney told the jurors she was legally insane when she killed Ganon. For reasons I've already stated, she did this on purpose. She knew what she was doing. She intended for this baby boy to die. Over the following days, multiple people testified for prosecution, including Ganon's father, Al, and the doctor that performed Ganon's autopsy. Al told the jurors that on January 26th, Leticia told him that a candle had accidentally spilled and there were bubbly spots on both sides of Ganon's arms. Leticia explained further that Ganon allegedly knocked over the candle, which started the fire. On January 27th, Leticia told Al that she didn't let Ganon go to school because he was having stomach issues. However, she said she let him go over a friend's house, all of which makes no sense. Leticia and Al were interviewed on January 28th, and afterward, Al went on a solo search for Ganon. It was at that time that Al discovered Leticia's car was not where she claimed it to be. He went back to the police department for a second interview, this time without his wife, without Leticia. Hotel documents show on February 4th, Leticia was in the Florida area. Ganon's body was found in that same area on March the 17th. In total, the trial for Stauch lasted 21 days, ending with the jury reaching a verdict on Monday, May the 8th. The jury deliberated a total of 8 hours before delivering a guilty verdict. After the announcement of the verdict, family members of Ganon asked that Leticia be given the maximum sentence. Al also asked the judge to strip Leticia of his last name. That's an extra level. He wanted her last name to be taken off away from her. And that's just an extra level to show you how pissed off the dad was. To be honest, can you blame him? There was actually a petition that was put up where people put up one of those change.org petitions to try to encourage the law to be changed where or get it to where they made it to where she had to legally change her name. So I don't think they're going to be able to actually accomplish that, but I understand. I definitely get it. The judge sentenced Leticia to life in prison without the possibility of parole on 2 counts of first-degree murder. He also sentenced Leticia to 13 and a half years on the charges of tampering with evidence and tampering with a dead body. That is a sick, sick person. Let's go. Federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without the authorization of the copyright holder. This is called fair use. It is allowed for purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, and parody, which doesn't infringe of copyright under 17 U.S.C. 107. And I do need to make a small correction. Thank y'all. I saw y'all post that in the chat. Law and Crime covered a lot of this, so thank you and shout out to lawandcrime.com. But she was in Colorado, but she took the body to Florida from what I understand. She drove his body to Florida from Colorado. Thank y'all for correcting me on that, because I think I said it incorrectly, but that's why we got the live chat. I'm thankful for that. So just to make that correction, here we go. Some of this I'm going to skip because it's a little bit long.
A parent's worst nightmare is getting a phone call letting them know that something has happened to their child. How much worse must that nightmare be when law enforcement asks not for a picture of your loved one, but rather DNA and dental records? I've also heard it said that one of the worst tragedies a parent can experience is to outlive a child. I have known people, both professionally and personally, who have gone through that. It never leaves them, but the sharpness of the pain does diminish to some extent over time. I cannot fathom the pain Mr. Stauch and Ms. Bullard have experienced as a result of the defendant's actions. A sentence in a criminal case such as this will not change the fact that their son's life was taken from them, and no sentence I impose and nothing I say will ever change that fact. Ms. Stauch, you betrayed the person you loved enough to marry. You told your husband lies and took away someone he loved. You took away every day that Mr. Stauch or Ms. Bullard could have had with their son. When you take a life, regardless of how you do that, you forever alter the future. Neither Mr. Stauch nor Ms. Bullard will ever see their son graduate from high school, go through the joy and the pain of that first love, or get married. They will never know what kind of impact their son may have had on the world if only he had lived to become an adult. And had Ganon's body not been found, they never would have known what happened to Ganon. They would always have had a lingering doubt about what happened to Ganon. And I cannot imagine the pain and sense of loss associated with that. You betrayed your daughter, Harley Hunt. I cannot imagine the emotional impact that you have had on her due to your selfish and calculated actions. This is a young woman that trusted you to put her interests above yours. This is a young woman who believed in you and believed you were innocent of this crime right up until the time that you pled not guilty by reason of insanity. And she still loves you. That's natural for a child, and it doesn't matter how much older they get. You were supposed to protect her. I cannot imagine the guilt she feels or the therapy that she will need to address your portrayal.
I'm going to skip some of this just a little bit. Let me see if I can skip forward just a little bit.
Keyboard. It's also not far from where you dumped Ganon's body. When questioned by Detective Bethel, you told her that Mr. Stauch might also make up some kind of story about you coming at him with a knife. You said you would never use a knife like that.
And I've always called her Letecia Stauch or Staunch, but it's Stauch or Stauch, however you say it. But I don't think I've ever been able to pronounce her name correctly, so.
Yet Ganon was stabbed 18 times.
Boy.
Your actions in this case also show a very conscious attempt to avoid responsibility in this case. You started out with the story that Ganon had run away. You gave some hints that it might be related to bath salts or drug use by Ganon. You stayed with that story until you were called into EPSO for an interview. You knew they weren't going to buy the story that Ganon ran away. Then you came up with the abduction. And you stayed with some iteration of that for a long time. But all of those versions had one thing in common. You were always the victim. In one, you're beaten and raped and Ganon was abducted. In one, someone stole Ganon out of a truck in the parking lot. In another, you let someone drive Ganon to a hospital to take care of a head injury that he had after falling off a bike. In all of them, you could claim it wasn't your fault. You were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Then you got arrested. You stuck to the story that it was someone else that took Ganon. During the hours that you spoke with Special Agent Grusing, he told you he thought sometimes good people do bad things and sometimes it's an accident. Then they found Ganon's body. Then you saw the mountain of evidence against you. And this is a mountain the size of Everest. What was your position after that? Well, it was an accident. And you, Leticia, didn't even do it. It was Maria Sanchez. You carefully crafted your new story to continue to avoid responsibility. It also allowed you to take advantage of the out that Mr. Grusing and Mr. Stauch suggested much, much earlier when they asked you if this was an accident. Now it was an accident. Your Maria Sanchez personality shot Ganon by mistake because she thought he was an intruder in a cape. Multiple personalities is not credible in this setting, as regardless of how many personalities you have, you only have one body.
Thank you for holding people accountable like they're just misusing the system with this mental illness. That's an excuse. That's an excuse.
I have presided over cases where a mental disease or defect prevented a defendant from remembering the course of events, including the commission of the crime. Without exception, those defendants have been terrified when contacted by law enforcement because there was a period of time in their lives that they could not account for. Their body may have sustained an injury, and they don't know how it happened. They may have some new object in their house or on their person, and they have no idea where they got it from. We all have free will, and we all make choices based on that free will. The people who suffer from the mental disorder you claim are terrified because their free will has been taken from them, and they are being subjected to things and experiences they don't understand and don't have any recollection of.
Did I not say that she knew exactly what she was doing and she wanted to end this boy's life? That's literally what I said, and I'm pretty sure that was the stance I had when I first talked about this in March of 2020, 3 years ago.
You didn't behave anything like that. One of the purposes is to impose an appropriate sentence for the criminal conduct that occurred. Another purpose is to punish an offender by imposing a sentence that takes into account the seriousness of the offense. Yet another purpose of sentencing is to prevent crime and promote respect for the law by providing an effective deterrent to others likely to commit a similar offense. Anyone who's been in my courtroom before knows that I've said sentencings are the most difficult thing that I do. That's especially true in cases where someone has lost his or her life. Nothing I or the law can do will ever bring that person back. I have handled hundreds, if not thousands, of criminal cases over the years. I think at this point in my career, I've presided over something like 200 jury trials. I've sentenced hundreds more defendants pursuant to plea agreements. This is not the first murder case that has come before me. This is not the first case I have presided over which involves harm to a child. This is not the first case I have had where a person who was in an unhappy marriage committed a crime.
If y'all would, please hit that thumbs up. Please, please, please share and hit that thumbs up while you guys are here.
Sadly, statistically, there is a high correlation between violent acts, including murders, and family members. I have had a number of cases which have demonstrated one person's capacity for cruelty toward another human being. I can, however, say without hesitation that the facts in this case are the most horrific I have ever seen. Your conduct in this case deserves the maximum punishment that I can impose under Colorado law. As such, with respect to the charge of first-degree murder after deliberation, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. With respect to the charge of murder in the first degree of a child under 12 by a person in a position of trust, I remand you to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections for the remainder of your life with no possibility of parole. Those two sentences will merge. If you have questions about that, you can ask your attorneys.
And what he just said right there was just like how Texas has super aggravated child abuse laws against children who are under the age of 10 years old. That special circumstance basically says that these children were less capable of being able to defend themselves against the tyranny of their caretaker, like I've been talking about for a long time, that we should impose a harsher sentence. That's what we've been asking for, and I love the fact that more states are doing this, but to hear him say that, I mean, think about how long, as the AFC podcast, how long we've been talking about that. So that's awesome. That's awesome to hear.
With respect to the charge of tampering with a deceased human body, I'm also going to sentence you to 12 years, followed by a 3-year period of parole. That sentence is to be consecutive to the life sentences that I've already imposed.
Consecutive, that means after her 2 life sentences. Y'all catch that? Consecutive, one after another. Concurrent means together. So that means if for some reason, if she's able to serve out 2 life sentences, she's still going to have that to deal with also. So, hey.
With respect to tampering with physical evidence, I'm going to impose an 18-month sentence. That sentence is also consecutive to the sentences for the murder charges that I have imposed. I also understand, with the consent of the prosecution, and I'm assuming no objection from the defense, that I will dismiss all the charges in 20 CR 3170, close that out subject to restitution, give the people 49 days for restitution, 14 days for response, and if there's an issue, we will set it within the 90 days, from.
All these people putting all this stupid stuff about blood and all this bullcrap. It doesn't any blood in that house because it's Ganon. Ganon bleeds all the time.
This is her talking, just so y'all know. I hope y'all can hear that because I can't turn it up any louder. I'm gonna let it play out. This is her voice. Listen at this.
All these people putting all this stupid stuff about blood and all this bullcrap. It doesn't any blood in that house because it's Ganon. Ganon bleeds all the time.
Okay.
There's no massacre occurred in our home.
That's Letecia Stauch telling one of many tall tales about the disappearance of her stepson Ganon. So how does famed criminal defense attorney Jose Baez come into the case?
Maybe it's part of her defense that she's insane, that she's imagining that she called our office. I have no idea.
I'm Anjanette Levy, and welcome to Law and Crime Sidebar Podcast. We've been following the murder trial of Letecia Stauch out of Colorado for several weeks now, and we've been telling you about the many things that she has said that simply are not true. Stauch claims that she was insane when she killed Ganon Stauch in January 2020 and then drove his body to Florida from Colorado and dumped him stuffed in a suitcase over a bridge in Florida's Panhandle. Prosecutors say on January 27, 2020, Letecia attacked Ganon in his bedroom. They were living in El Paso County, Colorado. That's the Colorado Springs area. Crime scene investigators found evidence that 11-year-old Ganon had been killed in his room. That evidence included blood on his walls and his mattress. Deputies believed Stauch acted suspiciously about this disappearance from the very beginning, and their suspicions were well-founded. When asked about Ganon, Letecia lied and then lied some more and lied again. It became this absolute mountain of lies that she could never really get out of. The biggest lie, or series of lies, I should say, was about how Ganon went missing. Listen to prosecutor Michael J. Allen talk about that.
Now, some of this I'm going to skip because I don't want to just play out their whole podcast, especially when you guys can check their podcast out over there at Law and Crime. So with respect to them, and I hope they understand that I was only going to play some of it. So I'm going to try to skip through it just a little bit.
I miss you, Ganon, and I love you to the moon and back again. I know every day you're with me and your sisters, but that will never be taken away.
Ganon Stauch's mom, Landon Bullard, describing the loss of her son after the guilty verdict in the murder trial of Ganon's stepmother, Letecia Stauch. It's one of the 7 most powerful moments from Stauch's sentencing. I've covered a lot of crime stories in walls and floors, as well as in Letecia Stauch's vehicle.
Okay, so I'll skip that. That's part of their podcast also. So with respect to them, I'm going to skip that part. Let me show you these last 2 short videos. These will be kind of quick.
I thank Larson Ranch. I thank my church family. I thank Restoration. I thank everyone that is here today. Albert's family, my family, people that are watching at home. I also want to thank the judge, the jurors, and Michael Allen and your team for putting up with me and my emotional mess that I've been since from the beginning. But I've adopted a new family, and I'm very blessed to have you in Ganon's army. You are a true inspiration, all of you. The days that I've had doubt and questions, you stood by us, and I'm very thankful. I can't give enough thanks. It's just one of those things that I just have to give God all the glory, because he has been a gracious God. When Ganon was born, we had one other time to fill the room. Ganon was born 1 pound 6 ounces. Our church came and the whole hospital was filled. This other time is in the courtroom in this 3-year journey, and I'm so thankful for every search effort, for every manpower that was put in, every foot that walked across the snow. You never gave up. And earlier, divine intervention was mentioned, and I have full faith. 11:11 was in some messages, the body being found. It's one of the hardest things to accept, but it was also one of the biggest pieces to this puzzle. And I'm so thankful to serve a God that would open paths for us to keep moving forward. So I stand here today when I encouraged you last time just to do good deeds, to make sure you tell your loved ones you love them. If you have a hard spot in your heart, just pray that you can get it out, because you're never promised tomorrow. We wake up.
All right, you just heard from...
Okay, and this is part of the trial. Also, like I say, if you want to see more of this, you can go to lawandcrime.com. I mean, they've been really amazing when it comes to their articles and their support. And I think even as content creators, I think they even understand people like us that sometimes need to share some of their content and stuff like that. But we always give them credit, so I'm thankful for that. And hopefully we can, continue to share and hopefully try to make a difference. And I really hope this makes a difference to get people like this not only off the street, but people who create excuses behind doing something a level of heinous like this. And she probably thought that she was going to get away with, I'm going to just give them a bunch of crazy stories and I did it because of this and this and that happened and so many things happened. And yeah, I'll get off on insanity. I'll get off lightly and maybe nobody will really know what happened. But the fact that they were so diligent to find out what really happened, put the story together, and then really more than anything, I think what stood out was the fact that they stood on and they said, nope, we're not letting you off lightly, and we're tired of people taking advantage of our babies. And that's a stand that I think in society and in America, that's where we got to stand the hell up. We got to take a stand. We have to have harsher sentences, and we have to make examples out of people just like Letecia Stauch or Staunch or Stench, whatever her freaking name is. Everybody, male or female, mother or father, boyfriend or girlfriend, need to be held accountable because this has got to stop. It's not slowing down. And maybe at some point, you just got to just really start smacking that proverbial hammer down on these people. Because the consequences have to make these people fear the choices that they're making when it comes to ending these children's lives. Leave the kids alone. You don't like it, get your punk ass away and get up out the house then. Why can't you be adult enough to do that? You don't like that boy that much? Leave the husband. Why don't you? Because you're selfish. We don't need people like that in our society. Young Ganon, young Prince. Let me see if I can get a solo picture of him by himself. A good picture, like these. R.I.P. Justice served. But that ain't going to bring this boy back. So let's try to continue to be advocates for children, and maybe we can prevent people like this from having access to kids, man. Do a background check. Maybe even do like a psychology test on people before you start having sex with them. And maybe we need to stop bringing people less and less around our kids. I definitely do not blame mothers, women, fathers. If you have biological kids in your house, if you are super, super cautious, continue to keep doing that. Don't just let anybody around your kids, man. Let me know what you guys think, though. Like, share, subscribe. Please hit that thumbs up. We got more coming. Thank you.